this text means a lot to me. I was really kind of surprised and happy to have it chosen because this is one of the things that actually made me care about Frances Harper. She was born in 1825 and she died in 1911. And she was a professional wordsmith from the beginning. And she wrote letters saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Women can only do certain things, teach and nurse. And she's a failure as a teacher because she didn't like it. So she had to create this job for herself, a profession, as a writer. And she made her living as a writer, as a word person. She was an activist artist. This is popular literature, oral literature, written to be recited. Not just recited, she was an elocutionist. Her daughter went to elocution school because delivery back in the day was a serious kind of refinement. To be an orator was to be more than, it was to be the best kind of artist. And Frederick Douglass and all of these people practiced, learned how to give speeches. And so when you read her work, you always read it with your ear. You know, you have to hear it. You have to say it out loud. What is really good about this is that she was at the 11th National Women's Rights Conference. They'd had 10 earlier in the war. So this is the first one after the war, right? And anti-slavery being, quote, moot because, slavery was being abolished. The women were turning their attention to themselves, their rights, which were important, but they kind of forgot about what we now call intersectionality. Harper makes sure that into the conversation is the idea that what Black women experience and need cannot be collapsed or identified as the same as what white women do. She's speaking out to a group of her white sisters, and she is working with them because she wants to the vote. She wants to equal rights. She wants all of this. But she has to first help them understand that what they're talking about in this conference, what they've been giving talks and asking for, was not inclusive. I feel I am something of a novice upon this platform, born of a race whose inheritance has been outrage and wrong. Most of my life I have spent in battling against those wrongs. But I did not feel as keenly as others that I had these rights in common with other women, which are now demanded. We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul. You tried that in the case of the Negro. You pressed him down for 2 centuries, and in so doing, you crippled the moral strength and paralyzed the spiritual energies of the white men of the country. When the hands of the Black were fettered, white men were deprived of the liberty of speech and the freedom of the press. Society cannot afford to neglect the enlightenment of any class of its members. At the South, the legislation of the country was in behalf of the rich slaveholders, while the poor white man was neglected. What is the consequence today? From the very class of neglected poor white men comes the man who stands today with his hands upon the hem of the nation. He fails to catch the watchword of the hour and throws himself, the incarnation of meanness, across the pathway of the nation. This is what she was saying would be the best way for the U.S. to go in this reconstruction, It's not about putting one over the other or whatever. It's about us learning to respect one another as human beings. We're all bound up together in a great bundle of humanity. I do not believe that giving the woman the ballot is immediately going to cure all the ills of life. I do not believe that white women are dewdrops just exhaled from the skies. I think that, like men, they may be divided into three classes: the good, the bad, and the indifferent. The good would vote according to their convictions and principles. The bad, as dictated by prejudice or malice. And the indifferent will vote on the strongest side of the question with the winning party. You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs. I, as a colored woman, have had in this country an education which has made me feel as if I were the situation of Ishmael, my hand against every man, and every man's hand against me. Let me go tomorrow morning and take my seat in one of your streetcars. I do not know that they will do it in New York, but they will in Philadelphia. And the conductor will put up his hand and stop the car rather than let me ride. Going from Washington to Baltimore this spring, they put me in the smoking car. I, in the capital of the nation, where the black man consecrated himself to the nation's defense. Faithful when the white man was faithless, they put me in the smoking car. They did it once, but the next time they tried it, they failed, for I would not go in. I felt the fight in me. But I don't want to have to fight all the time. Today, I am puzzled where to make my home. I would like to make it in Philadelphia, near my own friends and relations. But if I want to ride in the streets of Philadelphia, they send me to ride on the platform with the driver. Have women nothing to do with this? Not long since, a colored woman took her seat in an 11th Street car in Philadelphia, and the conductor stopped the car and told the rest of the passengers to get out and left the car with her in it alone when they took it back to the station. One day, I took my seat in the car, and the conductor came to me and told me to take another seat. I just screamed, "Murder!" The man said, if I was black, I ought to behave myself. I knew that if he was white, he was not behaving himself. Are there not wrongs to be righted? While there exists this brutal element in society, which tramples upon the feeble and treads down the weak, I tell you that if there is any class of people who need to be lifted out of their airy nothings and selfishness, it is the white women of America. She is always talked about as being well-dressed, well-mannered, very intellectual, but she is not going to let this conversation go on without calling on what must be dealt with. She knew she was going to hurt a lot of feelings. She wanted to keep that group on track, the right track. And so she had to walk this line with that essay and with her poetry.